For those of you who don't know, Dr. Archie is a member of our board of directors that helps guide our work with older adults and families each and every day. Dr. Archie is an occupational therapist with over 13 years of experience in home health, neurological, and elder-focused practice settings. She's a certified specialist in both living in place and low vision therapy and is the founder of AccessAble Living, a company whose mission is to adapt environments to fit the needs of older adults and keep them living safely in their homes. So, Dr. Archie, thanks so much for being with us here today. And just to start off, not everyone is super familiar with the term occupational therapy. So would you kind of mind giving us a quick intro to that?
Sure. The thing I like to say is I'm an occupational therapist, so it's my job to help make sure people can be safe and independent, taking care of themselves. And so that looks different across all the settings. So for kids, it might be being able to function in a classroom or maybe on Zoom this year. And for maybe working adults, it's being able to function in your job. But for elders, it's mostly making sure that you can take care of yourself in your home as your body changes. Or maybe as a disability is acquired. So things like making sure you can get yourself dressed and using tools to get in and out of the shower safely. And if you need a ramp to get into the house, how do we make that happen and what do you need to do for it? So occupational therapy is really wide and varied. And I think that's part of the reason why not everybody knows how to describe it, because it looks so different depending on who the person is that's receiving the therapy.
Thanks for that. So can you talk a little bit more about how occupational therapy helps older adults?
Sure. So it's a couple of ways that we do this. One most common way you might see it is if you're in a care facility of some kind, hospital or nursing facility, then you might have occupational therapy in order to get yourself strong enough to be able to get yourself dressed or to practice getting in and out of the tub so you can do it when you get home. Or maybe you have low vision issues and we'll work on ways to adapt what you do every day in order to make sure you can use your vision to its best ability. We can't fix your vision like we might be able to help fix your strength, but we can help you adapt to it and maybe change some lighting and use a new kind of magnifier or use a bunch of different techniques to make it happen. And the other thing that we're really keen at is helping make sure that caregivers, whoever that might be, whether it's a spouse or a daughter, knows how to best provide the care that's needed in order to facilitate independence. So sometimes being independent completely is not necessarily the goal, but we want to do as much for ourselves as we can. So if I just had a little bit of help, getting up in the morning, getting dressed, then I can fix my own meal and I can read the paper and drink my coffee. But that getting dressed part is really challenging, and so we help to make sure that people figure out that right balance so that they can have the lifestyle that they want.
Well, thanks. So what is it that made you decide to practice occupational therapy with older adults or people with disabilities in comparison to, you mentioned working with children or in other settings. So what made you land on older adults?
Oh, that's a good question. Part of it is selfish because I have learned so much from my patients and I just get to soak up everybody's wisdom and knowledge and try to avoid the mistakes that they made in their life and just, learn by example. So I love that part about it and working with older and wiser adults. The other thing I like is that, or I think is missing in the healthcare system, is that if somebody is born with a disability, let's say you're born with cerebral palsy, there's a whole pathway, a network of help and services that are available because our society has kind of set that up, right? Whether that's educationally, like the school systems, and people have worked very hard to make sure this happens, right? And then also the way our healthcare system works and insurance is paid for, they have like a pathway to try to get, the care and help they need. But when we have just things happening over time, there's no real big issue. It's not like I had a big injury, but maybe I just got diagnosed with Parkinson's. And it's like a slow progression. And at the beginning, I'm not really having too much trouble, but now I'm starting to have little issues here and there. who is the person that helps me with that? How do I get help for that? Because it wasn't like a car accident where all of a sudden I can't do what I want to do. And I just have a heart for working with individuals who are, starting to have some changes and want to continue to maintain their independence. And so I just felt like that was a good place for me to sneak in at and, try to provide some hope and solutions to some things that people kind of feel like, oh, I just can't do that anymore, or I don't read anymore because I don't see very well. I hate to hear that. So I'm always trying to find a way to get back to what you want to do, even if it's in a different way.
Absolutely. That's really awesome. Thank you. So, we mentioned that your company, AccessAble Living, is all about helping older adults and people with disabilities to remain in their own homes. Can you explain a little bit more about how you do that and the work that you do with older adults in your company?
Sure. I think we'll use an example so it makes a lot more sense. So let's say something traumatic does happen. Let's say somebody ended up with a stroke and went to the hospital, and they went to rehab and they did really great, but they're still having some trouble doing a few things. And the therapists at the hospital say, you are going to have to start using a walker, and we're using this higher toilet seat here at the hospital, and you're using a hospital bed. I think that you should have these things at home. Well, the missing link in our healthcare system is there's nobody to make sure that happens. They'll tell you their recommendations, but it's on you and your family in order to find those resources and make them happen at home, even though you just dealt with like a really big issue and you're in the hospital, And so what we do is, in that case, for example, is we can go do a free home safety assessment so we can see exactly what you're working with at home, and then make our recommendations as to how we can make that happen. Those great recommendations that came from your hospital therapist, how can we functionally make that happen at your house? We can maybe use your insurance to get a hospital bed, and it looks like you got 6 stairs to get up to get into your house. That's not going to be doable with the walker. So maybe we need to put a ramp in, or is there another entrance that maybe we can make a little more accessible? Your bathroom is probably a little bit small and your walker's not going to go through there. So how are we going to keep your balance when you walk through the bathroom door and get to the toilet and get to the shower? Maybe we need a raised toilet seat and some grab bars and a shower chair. All of that is dependent on your level of ability and the way your house is set up. And so our goal is you're going to continue to get rehab for a stroke, right? And you're going to continue to get better. Some diagnoses are not as much so. You might get some therapy for Parkinson's. You might get some therapy for dementia, but we kind of expect those things to continue to get worse. So we keep that in mind when we're thinking about the plan for how to make your environment meet your needs instead of you having to fit your environment, right? It's your house, right? Even if it's your apartment, we can work with renters and people who don't live in a place that they own. There's a lot of ways to modify homes that does not require making construction changes, but can still allow you to be as functional in your space as you can, right? You shouldn't have to struggle to get up from the toilet because it's low and you just try and keep trying. Let's just make the toilet higher, or let's give you something to hold on to so you can pull yourself up. We can't fix the whole world, but we can at least fix your world and the place where you're spending the most of your time, so that at least that's easier. And then you might feel more apt to say, yeah, I'm going to go visit my daughter, or I'm going to go to the store because I have the energy and the patience to do it, because at home, life is a little bit easier. I know I might encounter some challenges when I go out, but I'm up to that challenge because home is not hard. If home is a challenge, you're not going to want to go or do anything. And we know, psychologically, that's not great for us. I mean, everybody can attest to that now that we've been in lockdown for COVID and how much we've been separated from people and not doing what you want to do and how that makes you feel. But seniors have been dealing with that for a long time, because of their mobility or cognitive changes that keep them from being able to get out. So we're dealing with one piece, which is the environment and trying to manage that, but we're looking at it from a holistic lens because we want your life to be as best as it can be.
That's really cool. I can definitely see how that would help people kind of stay in their homes, because I certainly know at KABC and other places we get calls all the time of people who feel like they might not be able to stay in their home, and something like that could really make a huge difference. So I can certainly see what a great benefit you guys are providing to everyone there. Are there any, maybe easy tricks that you might have for our readers today on how they can make their home more accessible?
Yeah, I think anytime you're thinking about, let me back up. I talked about a traumatic incident, stroke, something new changed your life. Now we're making a change. But there's also the occasion that you just might be like, I really want to make sure that I can stay in this home for as long as I can. So anytime you're thinking about changing anything in your house, let's say you're going to remodel your bathroom or you want to upgrade your kitchen, we should be thinking about some really simple universal design techniques that make life easier for you now and anybody else who lives in the house or comes in at any time. A really good resource is a toolkit from AARP, and they go through room by room and talk about some simple design changes. So for example, if your doorknobs, instead of being round, are levers, then you can hit it with a fist or an elbow if you're a person like me carrying a small child, or if you have arthritis, it doesn't require so much effort to squeeze and turn in order to open your door. That's a simple change that if you're gonna make a change in your house, go ahead and consider that. Same goes for your faucets. Most of our older faucets are turn knobs, but if they're levers or even automatic, so you can just put your hand under and the water comes on, that's less reaching, that's less work for your hands. And so when you're thinking about changing the house in any way, add some of those features in. And that AARP toolkit is really helpful. For some other things, let's say you are noticing some changes in your level of ability right now, the things that we often recommend the most are a shower chair or a tub transfer bench. So a place to sit in the shower. And if you can buy something, but you also could just use a stool or a lawn chair if you've got nothing else to go off of. Anything that you're okay with getting wet, if you sit in the shower, then it creates a lot more safety, and we don't necessarily have to worry about slipping and falling and breaking a hip, right? Or being stuck in the shower. And the other thing that people tend to have trouble with is energy for whatever reason. Maybe it's multiple sclerosis, or maybe I'm just a lot weaker than I used to be. If I use half of my energy for the day just in the shower, how many other things do I want to do? So let's just sit down, take a load off, take our shower, and then we've got much more energy to last throughout the day. So that's a simple change. The other thing that we often recommend is elevating your toilet seat so that you're not sitting down so low. And it's easier to get up because we do that multiple times a day. And then adding a rail to the bed. I know people think about a hospital bed and how it's a long rail, it goes along the whole side. But a bed rail for home is just, maybe a foot or two wide. Put it up by the head of the bed, gives you a secure place to hold on to pull yourself out of bed, to sit on the edge of the bed so we don't slip off. And it's something you don't necessarily always think about, but once you have it, you're like, ooh, this makes things a lot easier. So those are my our most used items, and I think the simplest to add to what you're already doing.
And it sounds like those are some pretty, affordable things for people who might not aren't thinking about remodeling, but certainly something like a small grab bar to put on the edge of the bed would be definitely affordable. So that's a really great idea. Is there, you mentioned the AARP toolkit, and we'll definitely include that in our resource section of the newsletter. So if you guys scroll down here, you can go ahead and check out the resource section of our e-newsletter, and the AARP toolkit will be in there that Dr. Archie mentioned. Is there any other places that you might suggest our readers could find more information about occupational therapy services for older adults?
Yes, I think that if you think it's at any level going to be helpful for you to even just have somebody take a look at your house or just talk to you specifically about your needs. We were very broad here today because everybody's need for OT looks different. The starting place, OT is covered by your insurance in almost all situations. So start with your doctor and ask for a referral for occupational therapy. And then they may have somebody that they like to refer to. And so that'll cut down, you're looking around. And if not, then it's easy to find an OT in your area, either at you can start at your hospital. Almost all hospitals have an outpatient center and have some OT there. And that's a good place to get started. And even if that OT is not specialized in exactly what you need, they'll be a great resource to help you find what you do need that's in your community. And of course, if you're in the Kansas City area or Wichita area, AccessAble Living is here to serve you, so you can always reach out to us as well. And even if what we do is not necessarily what you need, we can help you find the resource that you do need in your area.
And her company, Accessible Living, is linked in the e-newsletter, so you guys can go ahead and visit that website and check out all the helpful resources that they've got up there as well. Dr. Archie, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. We really appreciate all of this knowledge and helpful tips and tricks, and it's just been a real pleasure to speak with you, and thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.